Hey there, buyers and sellers. Have you ever noticed that some words seem to have multiple meanings and multiple uses? Confusing, isn't it? I mean, really, let's take an already stressful process like buying or selling a home and make it even more confusing with muddy language. One particular example in real estate that I run into a lot is the word escrow. I'm Susan Cassidy with Coldwell Banker, and today we are going to untangle the confusion around escrow, a word that wears many hats in the world of real estate. Roll camera and let's dive in. Let's start with the actual definition of escrow. Escrow refers to a neutral third party holding assets or funds before they are transferred from one party in a transaction to another. In the context of a real estate transaction, escrow refers to the escrow account, which is the secure holding account where funds are placed in trust. You might think of it as a secure piggy bank. This legal arrangement involves an escrow agent, and the escrow agent could be a real estate broker or attorney involved in the transaction. They ensure that the funds are released only when all parties agree, in writing. So that's the actual definition. But the reality is that in everyday use, the term escrow has come to refer to that account, or the funds in it, or even the period of time in which it is held there. Hence the confusion. So now let's talk about the escrow funds or deposit, which is also called a good faith deposit or an earnest money deposit. Wouldn't it be nice if we had just one dedicated term for something? This deposit is put aside in the escrow account by the buyer at the beginning of the transaction and usually becomes part of their down payment at closing. This deposit is a critical part of the real estate transaction, symbolizing trust and intention between the buyer and the seller. It's a commitment indicator. It shows that the buyer is serious and committed to proceeding with the purchase. By putting their own funds at risk, the buyer sends a strong signal that they intend to work through the contingencies and close the deal. It's also an assurance of the buyer's financial stability. The ability of a buyer to provide a good faith deposit upfront demonstrates their financial capability to go through with the sale, which is reassuring for the seller. And finally, it's compensation for taking the property off the market. Once a seller accepts an offer, the property is typically taken off of the active market. And if the deal falls through due to a buyer's unwillingness to perform, the earnest money can possibly serve as compensation for the time the property was not available to other potential buyers. So if the buyer defaults on the purchase agreement without cause and outside their contingencies, the good faith deposit can be a source to cover potential damages or costs incurred by the seller who has relied on the buyer fulfilling their end of the contract. Although there are very specific guidelines for this, and it isn't as automatic as you might think. The deposit is kept from the time the parties sign the contract until the sale closes in the escrow account, at which time it is released to the seller as part of the sale price of the home. But unfortunately, on occasion, the funds have to be dispersed when a transaction fails to close. In those cases, the funds could go to either buyer or seller, or a combination, depending on why, how, and when the transaction fell apart and what the parties agreed to. It bears repeating that there is no automatic release to one party or the other, and you should discuss this with your agent or your attorney if you want to understand that better. Now, I imagine the escrow period idea is fairly evident at this point. This is the time period from contract to closing when the work is done by the buyer's team to get the mortgage and title in place and get ready to close. It's also during this time that the seller is packing up and getting ready to vacate the house prior to closing. In other words, it is the period of time in which the escrow funds are held in the escrow account waiting for the closing. Now, last but not least, let's not forget the escrow account tied to your mortgage. This is a second escrow account distinctly separate from the one that held your escrow deposit. After buying your home, if you have taken out a mortgage, you have the choice to make monthly payments into this type of escrow as part of your mortgage payment towards your taxes and insurance. It's your lender's way of managing these annual bills on your behalf. And each year, your lender will send you a statement telling you what activity there has been in this account, the payments you have made into it, and the payments they have made out of it to pay your property taxes and insurance. So now you can see why this one little word creates so much confusion. So when you hear someone refer to the escrow in your transaction, make sure you know if it is the deposit, the account, or the time frame they are referring to. Remember, the devil is in the details, and clarity is your best tool for success. I'm Susan Cassidy, and I hope you found this informative. If you need more information, feel free to reach out, or you can like or subscribe to my channel to get more videos at any time. Until next time, I hope you have a great day. Bye-bye.